Have you ever wondered if sex is inherently instinctual? Why did humanity have to write books to teach it? No one needs a manual to know how to breathe or how to eat when hungry. But from India to China, from the fragrant gardens of Arabia to the magnificent streets of Rome, humanity has spent thousands of years writing, drawing, and even praying about it. Why? Is it because we are so clumsy that we need a user manual for the body? Or is it because behind these books lies a lost language yet? Language not just for pleasure, but for conversing with the soul, with the divine, with the entire cosmos. You know the Kamasutra only is a collection of bizarre positions? Have you heard that the classic of the plain woman was the secret of the emperor's bedchambers? Have you ever thought that sex was only about pleasure? If you find yourself curious about this, hit subscribe and turn on notifications, because each night we will take another step on the journey to rediscover the secret languages that humanity has forgotten, and you won't want to miss it. Tonight, we begin with the first question. It sounds naive, but it is the most profound. Why did humans need to write guidebooks for it? The first whispers, why did humans need to write guidebooks for IT? Have you ever wondered? Why do we need a book to teach us about the bedroom when no one needs a book to teach them how to breathe, inhale, exhale? It's as simple as instinct, an automatic process the human body has been programmed for since birth. Eating when hungry, drinking when thirsty. The body knows what to do without instruction. These are the most basic needs for survival. Sex at its core is also a primal need, honed by millions of years of evolution to ensure the survival and propagation of our species. So why is it that the most intelligent creature on the planet is so clumsy that it has to write manuals for an act that seems to be programmed into our very blood, our deepest instincts? Let's embark on this journey where ancient secrets reveal the answer. And we will peel back layer after layer of history, from prehistoric caves to brilliant civilizations, to understand why sex is not just an instinct, but an art that needs to be learned. In a prehistoric cave, where the faint light from a fire dances on damp rock walls, casting the shadows of two primitive figures, Agana's clumsy and curious as children learning to speak for the first time. Their life is brutally simple. Hunt animals for food, gather fruits to fill their bellies, constantly evade dangerous predators like saber-toothed tigers or cave bears. It was the Sema, purely instinctual act, quick and efficient for procreation, requiring no complex thought or elaborate preparation. But one night, as the pale moonlight seeped through a crack in the rock, illuminating the cramped space, Ugg felt something different stirring within him. It wasn't just a purely physical need, but a desire for a deeper connection with Oga. A longing to share not just his body, but also his emotions and intimacy. An idea sparked in Ugg's mind. A new touch, a gentle caress, or a new way to share pleasure that would satisfy them both more fully. But this is where the tragedy begins. With a limited vocabulary consisting of a few primitive grunts and crude gestures, Yuji tried to express his idea by pointing aimlessly, jumping awkwardly, and making strange sounds like the howling of a wild beast. Oga, accustomed to the old simple procedure that had existed for generations, looked at him with a mixture of suspicion and alarm. Did this man eat a poisonous mushroom, or is he possessed by a demon? The result? A sharp glare, a deep sigh of disappointment, and Ugg was left to hug his rough animal hide and sleep outside the cold cave entrance. Under a sky full of glittering stars, from that humorous but meaningful failure, like the clumsy Tinder messages today that get you ghosted, humanity began along the arduous journey to rewrite the language of pleasure, transforming it from pure instinct into a more complex system. But as it evolved into a social and cultural ritual, things were no longer so harmless. They became laden with deep layers of meaning and sometimes conflict. Have you ever been in a situation like Ugg's, where a new gesture was misunderstood, causing a relationship to turn cold? Ask yourself, how can I communicate more clearly in moments of intimacy? Let's travel to ancient Egypt, where the legendary Nile River was the lifeblood of existence. Nourishing the golden desert sands and bringing bountiful harvests year after year. For the Egyptians, it was not just a private matter that took place in dark tents or lavish palaces. It was a sacred ritual tied to the balance of the universe. It was an act that mimicked the creation of the gods, the supreme beings who governed everything from the heavens and earth to life and death. The god Adam, in Egyptian mythology, created the universe through an act of self-pleasure, transforming his essence into the origin of all things. Isis, the faithful and powerful wife, reassembled the dismembered body of Osiris, god murdered by his brother Setu, conceived the god Horus, a symbol of rebirth and the victory of good over evil. Fertility rites were performed with care and solemnity to ensure the Nile flooded at the right time, making the fields fertile with wheat and vegetables, bringing prosperity to the people. The god Min, depicted with an erect phallus symbolizing reproductive power, and the goddess Hathor, the symbol of love, pleasure, and music, were carved all over the ancient temples, from Luxor to Karnak. Their manual was not written on fragile papyrus, but was passed down through resounding hymns and vivid reliefs on stone walls. Like a sacred contract with the cosmos, we do our part on earth, you do the rest from the heavens. These rituals were not just about supplication. They also educated the community about the role of sex in maintaining harmony between humans and nature, much like how we today seek a balance between work and personal life to avoid burnout. And if sex was a cosmic miracle for the Egyptians, the Greeks saw it as a philosophical exercise, where body and soul merged in perfection. In your relationship, does sex nurture overall balance, or does it drain your energy like a dry Nile? Crossing the windswept Mediterranean, we arrive in ancient Greece, where people were obsessed with perfection and balance in every aspect of life. The body was not something to be hidden under thick layers of cloth, but a work of art to be celebrated and admired. In the gymnasiums, men trained naked, honing their muscles to achieve the ideal form. At the Olympics, they competed without a scrap of clothing, displaying their strength and beauty before thousands of spectators. Artists sculpted statues of men and women with the golden ratio like the statues of Aphrodite or Apollo, showcasing every smooth curve, every firm muscle. Sex, for them, was a way to enjoy earthly beauty, explore the soul, and even achieve enlightenment. In Plato's Symposium, famous philosophers like Socrates engaged in lively debates about Eros, the god of love, seeing it as the force that propels humans to greater heights. He constructed the ladder of love, starting with the love of a physically beautiful body, gradually ascending to the love of the beauty of the soul, and finally reaching absolute beauty, an abstract and sacred concept. Sex was not just a fleeting pleasure, but a gateway to profound philosophy, helping people understand themselves and the universe better, much like how a modern meditation session helps you explore your inner self through your breath. Greek society also recognized and encouraged complex relationships. The wife stayed at home to bear children and manage the household, while the highly intelligent women skilled in poetry and philosophy served as intellectual and physical companions for men. Furthermore, same-sex male relationships were considered an important part of education, where older men guided young men in morals and life skills. Their secret manual lay in the poetry of Homer, the plays of Aristophanes, and the timeless marble statues, all emphasizing that sex was an art, not an accident. But what happens when modern people, with different moral standards, confront this openness? Have you ever viewed sex as a way to understand yourself better, not just to satisfy your body, like Socrates climbing the ladder of Eros? Imagine a 19th century English archaeologist, dressed in a thick, stiff tweed suit, standing in the scorching Egyptian desert under the glaring sun. He wipes the last layer of dust off an artifact, and suddenly, a statue of the god Min with an erect phallus glitters in the sunlight, flustering him so much that his hands tremble. Or in Greece, while excavating an ancient silver cup, A scene of two male couples making love naturally and artistically is revealed. The scholar, who had never seen a woman's ankle other than his wife's, blushes so hard he nearly faints, sweat pouring down his face. The entire excavation site falls into an awkward silence. No one dares to comment on what they have just discovered. These artifacts could not be displayed publicly in the British Museum, where Victorian ladies, with their floor-sweeping dresses and strict moral standards, would be horrified and consider it a disgrace. So, they were vaguely labeled as ritual objects or hidden away in secret rooms like the Gabinetto Segreto in Naples, reserved only for gentlemen of high moral character who were granted access. The very thing they shamefully hid was what the ancients considered sacred and natural, an indispensable part of life. This awkwardness reveals something profound. It is we, in the last few centuries, who have draped a thick veil of taboo over it, transforming it from a symbol of life into a forbidden topic, making modern humans even more in need of guidebooks to break through that shell. So why do we need guidebooks? Because ever since consciousness sparked in the human mind, sex has transformed into a complex language, the language of pleasure, of deep connection, of divinity, and of lofty philosophy. But like any language, if we don't learn the basic grammar, if we don't build a rich vocabulary, we can only speak in clumsy, misunderstood, and disappointing sentences. Have you ever felt confused, not knowing how to touch to bring joy, what to say to evoke emotion, or how to feel so that both of you reach the peak together? You are not alone. That confusion has existed since the time of Ugg and Oga in their dark cave. From the magnificent temples of Egypt to the vibrant gymnasiums of Greece, ask yourself, where did you first learn this language? From a shady website full of misinformation and crude images, from a clumsy whisper from friends, often accompanied by inaccurate jokes, or from a dry sex education book filled with medical terms that made you more scared than understanding and interested? Our journey doesn't end here. From these primitive rituals, that language evolved into great scriptures full of depth and subtlety. In the next part, we will travel to ancient India to explore the Kamasutra, the most misunderstood book in history, where sex is not just physical pleasure, but a holistic art of living, combining the physical, spiritual, and the social. Are you ready to continue this adventure? India, the cosmic dance in the bedroom, the true secret of the Kamasutra. You think the Kamasutra is just a list of 1001 bizarre positions for the bedroom? Then I'm sorry, but you've only skimmed about 20% of the book. Prepare to be astonished, because tonight we will throw open the doors to a vibrant ancient India, where the Kamasutra is not just the art of love, but a philosophy of life, a symphony of desire, duty, and elegance. And if you still think it's just full of awkward drawings that make you wonder if the author confused the bedroom with an advanced yoga class, you're about to realize how wrong you've been. We will dig deeper, exploring historical data from the Vedic period to the 3rd century AD, and even touch upon modern scientific perspectives where studies in psychology and medicine prove that these ancient principles are not just philosophy, but also bring real health benefits, from stress reduction to an improved immune system. Let's be honest. When you hear Kamasutra, what do you think of? A secret manual filled with impossible lovemaking positions, reserved only for those who want to upgrade from amateur to professional. In popular culture, the Kamasutra is a symbol of boldness, a secret guide whispered about in movies, pop music, and even party jokes. But what if I told you that everything you know or think you know about the Kamasutra is just a tiny corner of the picture? That the famous positions make up less than a fifth of its content, and the rest is about how to live, how to love, and how to be a complete human being. Tonight, we will stop peeking through the keyhole. Let's step together into 3rd century India, into the world of Vatsyayana, author of the Kamasutra, to discover what he truly wanted to say. History tells us that the Kamasutra was written around 200 to 300 AD, During the Gupta period, a golden age of ancient India when art, science, and philosophy flourished, the city of Pataliputra, the former capital of the Mauryan Empire, was still a vibrant cultural center. Imagine this. You are standing in a house in the ancient city of Pataliputra. The scent of jasmine wafts from the garden. The golden light of oil lamps shimmers on exquisite murals. A man emerges, draped in fine silk, his lips lightly rouged, chewing fragrant betel leaves. This is the Nagaraka, the ideal model of an urban gentleman. Wealthy, educated, and elegant. The Kamasutra. It was his life manual, teaching him not just how to love, but how to live a balanced, artistic, and meaningful life. From a scientific perspective, modern psychologists, like researchers at Psychology Today, have shown that the Kamasutra is not just a sex manual, but a framework for mental health. Studies show that pursuing pleasure in a balanced way, as Vatsyana describes, can reduce anxiety and depression by stimulating the release of endorphins, the happiness hormones similar to the benefits of meditation or yoga. A 2024 study from ResearchGate emphasizes that the Kamasutra integrates hedonic and eudaimonic happiness, helping individuals achieve self-actualization, much like Aristotle's theory applied in an Indian context. To understand the Kamasutra, you must first understand its name. Sutra, in Sanskrit, means thread or aphorism short, concise sayings woven together like a tapestry of knowledge. Kama is not just lust or sex, it is the pleasure of the senses. Savoring a delicious meal, listening to the resonant strings of a sitar, inhaling the fragrance of rose perfume, or immersing oneself in love. Kama is the art of enjoying worldly life. But Kama is just one piece of a larger puzzle, the Hindu philosophy of the Parasharthas, which originated in the Vedic period, where texts like the Rig Veda mention desire as part of the cosmos. The ancient Indians believed that a complete life is like a table standing firmly on four legs: dharma, duty, ethics, responsibility to family, society, and the gods. It is the moral compass, the answer to how should I live. Historically, dharma was reinforced through texts like the Manusmriti, emphasizing social harmony. Artha, wealth, fame, career. An empty stomach cannot contemplate philosophy. Sturdy roof is the foundation for morality. Kautilya's Arthashastra is a parallel text, teaching how to accumulate wealth ethically. Kama, pleasure, enjoyment, from a good meal to passionate love. Without Kama, life is just a series of dry days. Modern science supports this. Studies from PMC show that regular sex improves cardiovascular health, reducing the risk of high blood pressure by up to 30%, and boosts the immune system by increasing immunoglobulin. Moksha, liberation, union with the cosmos, achieving nirvana, the ultimate spiritual goal. Described in the Upanishads as transcending the cycle of reincarnation. Vatsyana's genius was that he did not see these four goals as conflicting. On the contrary, they must be in harmony. You need Artha to support Dharma, and you need Kama to add color to life. But all must remain within the bounds of Dharma. Only when the other three legs of the table are stable does Kama become a dance, not a tragedy. But what about Moksha? That's the most interesting part, as it reminds us that all pleasure is just one step on a much longer journey. History shows that the Kama Sutra was based on older texts, like the Kama Shastra from the Mauryan period, and Vatsyana synthesized them into a complete system. From a scientific perspective, a 2025 article on APA PsychNet links the Kama Sutra to mental health, suggesting that the conscious pursuit of Kama can lead to Kama Mutta, profound emotional moving together, reducing social isolation and enhancing emotional connection, similar to the benefits of modern couples therapy. The Kama Sutra is not a book that glorifies lust. It is a guide on how to pursue Kama artfully, righteously, and in harmony with Dharma and Artha. It is not just a bedroom user manual, but a treatise on one of the great goals of human life. And historical data from Britannica confirms that it is the oldest scientific text on eroticism. It's written in Sanskrit in northern India. Who was behind this book? Vatsyana, who lived around the 2nd-3rd century AD, was not a flamboyant playboy. It is more likely that he was a celibate scholar, perhaps even an ascetic, more like a professor compiling a textbook than an author of erotic tales. He synthesized knowledge from the Kama Shastra, the science of desire, to write a manual for the Nagaraka. Sources like Wikipedia and Wisdom Library indicate Vatsyana was a Brahmin, possibly from the Malanaga lineage, and his work acknowledges the Vedic heritage where desire was seen as part of the cosmic dharma. Let's picture the Nagaraka again. Every morning, he bathes in rose water, wears silk robes, chews betel for fresh breath, and then steps into his jasmine-scented garden. He is well versed in the 64 arts. From singing and chess to magic and flower arranging, a list detailed by Vatsyana, reflecting the cultural diversity of ancient India. The Kamasutra teaches him not only how to court women, but also how to choose a wife, treat his wives with kindness, remain faithful, and behave courteously with everyone. Sex, it's just one part, and those famous positions were not meant for you to compete in bedroom acrobatics. Vatsyana saw them as creative steps in the lifelong dance of a relationship, where the goal is harmony, joy, and avoiding monotony. Sex, in his eyes, was a spiritual dance, a small-scale reenactment of the universe's creation and idea, inspired by Tantra, where the masculine and feminine unite, much like how a modern couple tries to keep the spark alive after many years to avoid boredom. When was the last time you spent an entire evening just savoring a delicious meal, or the last time you viewed your love life as a dance rather than a routine? Science backs this up. Research from WebMD and Mind Valley shows that such practices improve sexual health, reduce erectile dysfunction, and increase relationship satisfaction, with data from clinical trials showing benefits similar to modern sex therapy. So why did such a profound book become a sex manual? The answer lies in the 19th century with an English explorer, Sir Richard Burton. In the Victorian era, when sex was a taboo subject, Burton, a man infatuated with the East, discovered the Kamasutra and was captivated by its openness. He translated it into English in 1883, but due to strict censorship laws, he had to publish it secretly through a ghost publisher. To attract Western readers, Burton emphasized the sexual aspects, causing the chapters on philosophy, ethics, and the art of living to be overshadowed. The Kamasutra, once a guide to life, was reduced to a catalog of strange positions. And from the moment he published it, the Kamasutra was forever misunderstood. A misunderstanding that you might still believe today. It's a history of translation, according to sources like history.co.uk, has distorted the image of the Kamasutra, turning it from a philosophical document into a pop culture icon. But modern science is correcting this. Articles from ResearchGate discuss the application of the Kamasutra in sex therapy in India, where psychologists use its principles to treat sexual dysfunction, helping to improve the quality of life for millions. What does the Kamasutra want to tell us? Not complex techniques, but balance. Balance between duty, wealth, and pleasure, to strive for liberation. In our modern lives, our four-leg table is wobbling. The leg of artwork, money is swollen, weighing everything down. The leg of Dharma may still be there, but the leg of Kama, joy, pleasure, is withering. Do you feel your table tilting? How long has it been since you truly lived for common, not just sex, but those moments of pure, unadulterated enjoyment of life, just because you deserve it? The Indians saw sex as a spiritual dance, a harmony of masculine and feminine. But on the other side of the Himalayas, the ancient Chinese saw it as an elixir of long life. Join me as we leave India to uncover that secret in the next part, where we will delve into Taoism and the practices of nurturing life, with historical data from the time of the Yellow Emperor and the scientific benefits related to hormones and longevity. Is any leg of your life's table wobbly, causing pleasure to be pushed aside by work and stress? China, the art of nurturing life and the emperor's secret to longevity. What if sex, instead of leaving you exhausted and tired, could become an elixir of long life, helping you live longer, stay younger, and even become immortal? It sounds like a wild dream from a fairy tale, doesn't it? But this is the core secret that the ancient Chinese discovered, turning the bedchamber into a secret laboratory of life. Tonight, let's open the ancient scrolls together to discover whether we have overlooked an extraordinary power within our own bodies. If in the last chapter we immersed ourselves in the passionate dance of India's Kamasutra symphony of colorful, enjoyable, and balanced living, our journey now takes us to a completely opposite world. Let's temporarily set aside worldly passions and fiery romantic conquests to enter a tranquil space where sex is not a feast for the senses, but a deep meditation, a healing remedy for the soul and body. Welcome to ancient China, where the question was not just how to live a full and balanced life, but something far more ambitious: how to live as long as possible, even to the point of touching immortality. And the answer, surprisingly, lay in the secret arts of the bedchamber. Here, the sexual secrets of China, most notably represented by the Su Nu Jing, are not like a guide to carnal pleasure or social ethics. It is more like an advanced medical text, an ancient scientific document, focusing on health, energy, balance, and the art of yang shengde, art of nurturing life. The ancient Chinese approached sex not through the lens of a romantic artist or a moral philosopher, but through the eyes of a brilliant physician, a pioneering scientist, and a Taoist master endlessly searching for the path to eternal life. They proposed a revolutionary premise. Sex is not an act that consumes energy, but it can become a tool to accumulate, nourish, and regenerate energy, helping people become healthier, stay younger longer, and even reach the threshold of immortality. Imagine, your bedroom is no longer merely a place of rest, but transforms into an alchemical laboratory where flesh merges to forge the elixir of immortality. But how can this be achieved? The answer lies in the foundational myth that shaped all of Chinese medicine and philosophy. Let me transport you to a vivid cinematic scene, like a mystical period drama, imagine, in a cold stone palace under the dim moonlight. The smoke of incense drifts lazily in the air, carrying the faint scent of sandalwood. The Yellow Emperor, an old king with white hair and a face etched with worried wrinkles, sits on his throne looking like a humble student. He is Huangdi, the Yellow Emperor, not just a historical king, but the primogenitor of the Chinese people, a symbol of civilization and wisdom. According to legend, he invented writing, agriculture, and medicine, the foundations upon which a great empire was built. But tonight, he is not an omnipotent sage. He is an ordinary man with a very human problem. With a vast harem of thousands of concubines, he must fulfill his duty of procreation, but age has diminished his strength and depleted his vitality. Have you ever felt your body weaken after a night of passion, or worried that desire might erode your health? The Yellow Emperor of ancient China shared the same concerns, and he decided to seek advice from the most learned counselors. And then Su Nu appears, not as a seductive concubine, but as a mystical figure, perhaps a goddess or a celestial nymph descended to earth. With eyes as bright as an autumn lake, long flowing hair, and a voice that whispers like the wind through a bamboo forest, she holds profound knowledge of the workings of heaven and earth, the human body, and the secrets of life. The Su Nu Jing is presented as a direct dialogue, as authentic as an ancient medical consultation. The Yellow Emperor, his voice trembling with anxiety, asks frank questions about his difficulties in the bedchamber, how to preserve his strength, avoid depletion, and prolong his life. Su Nu, with a gentle but wise smile, patiently explains each step, turning sensitive topics into profound medical lessons. It is this, master asks, disciple answers context that elevates the Su Nu Jing from a sexual text to a classic of medicine and philosophy. A national secret passed down since the dawn of the nation. But what were the secrets Su Nu revealed? They were not just techniques, but keys to unlocking a universe of energy within the body. And to understand them, we must delve into the most fundamental concepts of the East. Now let's temporarily forget all the Western biology. You have learned things about hormones, cells, or DNA. For the ancient Chinese, the universe operates on the harmonious interaction of two polarities, yin and yang. Imagine yin and yang as the two sides of an ancient coin, always connected and complementary. Yang is the vast sky, the brilliant sun, and man with his active, hot, bright, and hard power, like a bursting flame. Yin is the boundless Mother Earth, the gentle moon, and woman with her receptive, cold, dark, and soft nature, like a smoothly flowing stream. Everything in the universe, from distant galaxies to a tiny cell in your body, contains and is governed by the perfect balance of these two energies. Health, therefore, is not the absence of disease, but a state of absolute harmony between yin and yang. Illness only occurs when this balance is disrupted. Too much yang makes the body hot and restless. Too much yin makes you tired and lethargic. And at the center of it all is qi, the vibrant, invisible, yet powerful life force that circulates throughout the body like an underground river through meridians. Qi is the substance that makes up both yin and yang, the breath of life, the force that helps you wake up each morning full of vitality. Think about it. Have you ever felt a flow of energy through your body after a yoga or meditation session? That is qi, and its smooth circulation is the key to a healthy body and a clear mind. From these principles, the ancients drew a logical and revolutionary conclusion. If health is the balance of yin and yang, then sexual activity, the most direct encounter between a yang entity and a yin entity, is the most powerful opportunity to exchange, regulate, and strengthen these two energies. It is not just the simple friction of skin, but a deep interaction of qi, a miniature cosmic union right in the bedroom, just as you might feel recharged after a meaningful, intimate encounter, instead of exhausted from work stress. The ultimate goal of the bedroom arts is not a fleeting, explosive orgasm like fireworks, but the harmony and nourishment of energy for both partners. After intercourse, both should not only be satisfied, but also feel healthier, more energetic, as if reborn. It sounds idealistic, doesn't it? But this is the foundation for specific practical techniques, and also where things become most controversial in the eyes of modern people. Based on the principles of yin-yang and qi, Sunu provided very different practical instructions for men and women. Stemming from the physiological concepts of the two sexes, for men, who are yang in nature, their energy is likened to fire. It flares up powerfully and brightly, but also extinguishes easily if not controlled. A man's semen, called jing, was considered the most precious treasure, the storehouse of the most essential life force. Each ejaculation was seen as a great loss, a depletion of vital energy leading to energy drain, rapid aging, accumulating illnesses, and a shortened lifespan. Have you ever woken up after a passionate night feeling completely drained, as if you've lost a part of your life force? That is the exact feeling the ancients warned against. Therefore, the most crucial technique for men was jing retention, that is, preserving the seminal essence. This meant that a man could have intercourse, even reach orgasm, without ejaculating. It sounds fantastical to modern medicine, but according to Taoist masters, through persistent practice including breath control, mental focus, and pelvic floor exercises, they could control the flow of energy at the peak moment. Instead of expelling semen outward, they would redirect that essential energy up the spine to the brain, a process called returning the essence to nourish the brain. The lost energy was recycled into a higher-grade resource, nourishing the brain, enhancing intelligence, and prolonging life. This is perhaps the original and most advanced version of the no-nut November trend that modern youth joke about, where preserving seminal fluid is promoted as a way to enhance health and focus. But while today it is merely a test of willpower, with the reward of a few praises on social media, in ancient times, it was a serious discipline. It's promising longevity, even immortality. And you know what? Many modern studies on ejaculation control also suggest benefits for male health, such as stress reduction and hormonal improvement. So what about women? Their yin nature, their energy is like water, deep, enduring, flowing ceaselessly, and nearly inexhaustible. The ancients believed that women did not lose energy during intercourse like men. On the contrary, Their yin nature allowed them to receive and absorb the powerful yang energy from men to nourish themselves. In sexual practice, according to the art of nurturing life, the man's duty was to hold back to prolong the duration, bringing abundant pleasure to the woman. The more orgasms she had, the richer her yin essence became, and the stronger her ability to absorb yang energy, helping both partners become healthier. Does it sound biased towards men? Not exactly at the highest level. It was a surprisingly fair two-way exchange. The man preserves his essence to have longer intercourse, bringing joy to the woman. In return, her deep yin energy gently nourishes and strengthens his yang energy, creating a cycle of mutual generation where both benefit. These secret arts did not just exist in legends. They were deeply embedded in Chinese cultural and political life. Imagine in the magnificent Forbidden City, with thousands of beautiful concubines. The bedroom arts were considered a vital tool for the emperor to maintain his health, mental clarity, and reproductive ability. It wasn't just for pleasure, but to ensure he had enough strength to work the next day. A king's deadline is quite different from our office deadlines, isn't it? It was a state secret, taught only to the emperor and high-ranking officials, to ensure the longevity of the dynasty. At the same time, Taoist masters on high mountains and secluded hermitages studied and practiced these techniques as a core part of their path to immortality. For them, sex was not a spiritual obstacle. If practiced correctly, it was an internal alchemical furnace, refining qi, uniting yin and yang, and extending life. It blended with a larger system of life nurturing. A simple diet, practicing qigong at dawn, meditating by a stream, all aimed at achieving immortality. And its most important legacy is the foundation of traditional Chinese medicine. The concepts of yin-yang qi and meridians, once discussed by the Yellow Emperor and Su Nu in the bedroom, became the core principles for diagnosing and treating diseases to this day. Through acupuncture to stimulate meridians, acupressure to balance qi, or herbal medicine to nourish yin and yang, millions of people still benefit from this ancient knowledge. Modern research even confirms some benefits, such as acupuncture for pain relief, or herbs for improving reproductive health. So, from the passionate dance in India to the elixir of long life in China, we see two opposing but complementary approaches. The Kamasutra seeks a balanced, complete life. The Su Nu Jing seeks to extend that life indefinitely. One is a philosophy of living well, the other a technology for living long. This poses an interesting question for us, busy modern people. Try to forget the concepts of good or bad sex. Think of it in terms of energy. After an intimate connection, do you feel full of vitality, refreshed and uplifted, or tired, sluggish and depleted? Is that relationship nourishing you or draining you? Perhaps your body's answer is more honest than any thought in your mind. And who knows, maybe these ancient secrets are still waiting for you to discover them and change your life. From India and China to giants of the East, our journey will continue to another mystical world. Join me as we cross the burning desert sands to explore sex in the perfumed garden of the Islamic world. Do you feel your body is being nourished or depleted after intimacy, like qi being blocked after a long day at work? The Arab world, the perfumed garden, and the gift of God. Do you think the ancient Islamic world viewed sex as taboo, suppressed by harsh rules and strict dogma? Then prepare to be surprised, even culturally shocked. One of the most progressive women-respecting sex manuals in human history was born from this very civilization, a masterpiece of intimacy. Pleasure is not a sin, but a divine gift from the Creator. Tonight's journey will take us away from the mystical cosmic dances of ancient India, past the subtle life-nurturing arts of China, to step onto a path full of surprises and fragrances. The Arab world, perfumed garden, where sex is not just physical pleasure, but a sacred prayer, an act of gratitude to Allah. Imagine you are wandering through the lush green gardens of the Alhambra in Islamic Spain, or strolling through the bustling spice markets of Baghdad, where knowledge and joy blend like honey and saffron. To understand better, we need to go back in time to the Islamic Golden Age, which lasted from the 8th to the 13th centuries under the Abbasid Caliphate and other Islamic kingdoms. This was the most brilliant era of humanity during the Middle Ages. When Europe was still mired in the darkness of decline after the Roman Empire, Baghdad, the capital of the Abbasid Empire founded in 762 by Caliph al-Mansur, became the global center of knowledge with the House of Wisdom, a massive library and research center. Here scholars from all backgrounds, Muslim, Jewish, Christian, even from India and Greece, translated and created together. They translated Aristotle, Plato, and Euclid from Greek into Arabic, opening the door for modern science. Al-Khwarizmi, the father of algebra, developed mathematics. Ibn al-Haytham revolutionized optics. And Avicenna, with his 1025 masterpiece, The Canon of Medicine, described the body's anatomy in detail, including the reproductive system, with a scientific approach that did not shy away from discussing sex as part of human health. Similarly, in under the Umayyad Caliphate, the library of Caliph al-Hakam II contained over 400,000 books, far surpassing any library in Europe. Cairo under the Fatimids was also a center of medicine, where physicians like Ibn Ridwan studied sexual pathologies. In this context, literature and art flourished. Poets like Abu Nuwas praised both homosexual and heterosexual love in passionate verses, while 1001 Nights, collected from the 8th to the 14th centuries, was filled with romantic tales, adventures, and sensual moments. Like the story of Scheherazade and the King, where intellect and desire intertwine. It was in this brilliant cultural cradle, 15th century Tunis under the Hafsid dynasty, that Sheikh Muhammad ibn Muhammad al-Nafsawiya, Tunisian scholar, poet, and physician, wrote the Perfumed Garden for the soul's recreation. At the request of the vizier Abed al-Aziz al-Madawi, who wanted a comprehensive work on the art of love for the nobility, al-Nafsawi, born around 1410 and died after 1492, was not an isolated ascetic, but a product of the Arab scholarly tradition, influenced by earlier authors like Ibn Hazm, with his 11th century book, The Ring of the Dove, a treatise on romantic love. This was not an abstract philosophical text like Vatsyayana's Kamasutra, with its 64 statue-like artistic positions. Nor was it a cold medical treatise like China's Su Nu Jing, focused on preserving essence for longevity. It was a garden, a place to stroll, to admire, for the soul to relax, with a structure of 21 chapters, from choosing a partner to sexual health issues. The book is a unique blend of practical instructions, humorous fables, romantic poetry, and even traditional medical formulas using herbs like saffron, cinnamon, and honey to cure impotence, recipes based on Greco-Galenic medicine adapted by Arabs. But what makes the Perfumed Garden different and progressive is its deep religious foundation, reflecting the spirit of the Quran and the Hadith. Each page begins with praise for Allah and the Prophet Muhammad, placing all advice, all descriptions of pleasure within the framework of faith, morality, and lawful marriage. Sheikh al-Nafsawi saw pleasure as a divine gift from God, quoting the Quran, "O children of Adam, wear your beautiful apparel at every time and place of prayer, eat and drink, but waste not by excess." If Allah gave humans senses to experience joy, then why should that joy be a sin? Enjoying pleasure correctly within the strong bond of marriage was a way of showing gratitude to the Creator. Much like how we today consider a delicious meal or a vacation a gift of life, not a sin. To refuse that gift for him was to deny grace, similar to how Sufi mystics like Rumi saw physical love as a stepping stone to divine love. Have you ever thought that your own pleasure could be a gift from God? Or have you ever inadvertently refused that gift due to your own hesitation or prejudice? Historically, this view was not an exception. The 11th century philosopher Al-Ghazali, in his Ihya Ulum al-Din, also advocated for sex within marriage as part of moral balance. What makes the Perfumed Garden so progressive, especially for its time when Europe still viewed sex as original sin, according to Catholicism, is its profound respect for women, reflecting the influence of female Islamic scholars like Fatima al-Fihri. Sheikh Nafsawi devotes several chapters to advising husbands on the importance of foreplay, on how to explore their wife's erogenous zones with gentle gestures, and emphasizes that a husband has a moral obligation to ensure his partner's satisfaction, quoting the hadith. No husband should satisfy himself before his wife has reached her pleasure. Can you believe a 15th century scholar wrote, "A man who only knows his own pleasure and neglects his wife is selfish and rude like a wild beast"? He describes, in detail, affectionate gestures, sweet words, and the importance of creating an intimate, safe space, perhaps inspired by Islamic palaces with their gardens and fountains for both to enjoy. This is not just a sex manual, but a lesson in sharing where pleasure becomes a dialogue of body and soul. With no one left behind, a stark contrast to ancient Greek texts like Ovid's, which viewed women as objects of conquest similar to modern relationships, where communication about needs is key to avoiding misunderstandings. Furthermore, the book is a comprehensive guide to married life, expanding on Islamic tradition. Sheikh al-Nafsawi offers advice on choosing a partner, listing good qualities and bad ones in both men and women, based on stories from the Sunnah. He provides herbal remedies to treat everything from impotence to frigidity, and even suggests aphrodisiac foods like pistachios and honey recipes derived from Unani medicine, the Greco-Arabic medical system. Sex, in this garden, is the sweet glue that binds to people, both physically and spiritually, in a relationship built on understanding and respect. Much like how the royal couples of the later Ottoman Empire would practice. But what happened to this open tradition? Why has the perfumed garden become so alien to the image of the Arab world in our eyes today? History, as usual, is full of complex and tragic turns. The Golden Age faded under invasions. The Crusades from 1095 to 1291 devastated the Middle East, followed by the Mongol invasion in 1258 that destroyed Baghdad and the House of Wisdom, killing millions and burning books. Conservative schools of thought arose, like 18th century Wahhabism in Saudi Arabia, combined with the influence of Western colonialism from the 19th century, which brought with it the rigid moral values of the Victorian era under the British and French. Colonies like Algeria or Egypt had Western civilized standards imposed on them, which treated sex as taboo. Gradually, works like The Perfumed Garden were pushed into the shadows, deemed inappropriate, and the scientific openness of the past gave way to silence. The original manuscript was lost, known only through Richard Burton's French translation in 1886, and was later rediscovered in Istanbul's libraries. But its legacy remains, as a reminder that no culture is a monolith. The past always holds surprises, and the perfumed garden is proof of a third way. Not the balance of the Indian philosopher, not the calculations of the Taoist sage, but the enjoyment of a believer, where desire merges with faith. In this perfumed garden, sex is a prayer with the body, an act of gratitude, a taste of paradise here on earth. But the most profound lesson Sheikh al-Nafsawi leaves us is about respect and communication, reflecting the spirit of gender equality in the Quran. A fulfilling sex life cannot come from selfishness. It requires genuine care for the desires and feelings of one's partner. In your relationship, is the dialogue about desire and pleasure truly equal? Are the desires of both partners given equal weight, respected equally? Or is there still silence, hesitation, causing the shared garden of two people to slowly wither? Reflect on this, for history teaches us that openness can be lost, but it can also be found again. From the sacred garden of faith, our journey will take a dramatic turn. Let's leave the magnificent domes and the scent of orange blossoms to plunge into the noisy streets, bloody arenas, and lavish banquets of ancient Rome. If in the Arab world, sex was a prayer, then in Rome, it was a power game, a game of seduction, drama, and sometimes the loser paid with their blood. Join me to discover it in the next part. In your relationship, is pleasure considered a shared gift, or is one side being neglected, like a garden withering from lack of water? Ancient Rome, the art of love, or a game of romance in the city. In India, sex was a cosmic philosophy leading to liberation. In China, it was an elixir of longevity, balancing yin and yang. In Arabia, it was a sacred gift, enveloped in faith and morality. But in Rome, love and sex were a game, public chess match, full of strategy, where the rewards were pleasure, reputation, and conquest. But be careful. In Rome, one wrong move could cost you exile, or even your life. Welcome to Rome, the capital of a great empire, where colossal structures like temples and arenas challenged the gods themselves, where lavish feasts lasted all night, and where political conspiracies lurked in every corner of the Senate. This was no place for quiet contemplation or deep introspection. Rome was a living chessboard, where every glance, every touch of the hand could be a move. And in this mesmerizing game of love, no one was a greater master than Ovid the poet, the rebel, and the most infamous influencer of the first century. Imagine you are standing in the middle of ancient Rome. The Colosseum glows under the sun, where the blood of gladiators splatters on the golden sand, mingling with the roar of tens of thousands of spectators. Chariots thundered down the track of the Circus Maximus, dust billowing, the crowd ecstatic to the point of frenzy. In the Forum, tense trials unfold amidst magnificent marble columns, where lawyers debate and worried women watch over the fate of their fortunes. In luxurious villas, wine flows freely, laughter mixes with the sound of the lyre, and whispered sweet nothings echo in the flickering candlelight. This is Roma's city of excess, where everything was ostentatious, public, and performative. Love in this world was not a spiritual journey or a medical remedy. It was a social performance, a game played right in the public eye with clear rules, tactics, and rewards. Victory was not the union of souls, but a nod from your target, an adoring gaze, or an enhanced reputation in the ambitious Roman society. But to play this game well, you needed a guide. And that guide was Ovid, the flamboyant, witty, and sharp poet who turned the art of love into an infamous manual that shook the entire empire. Ovid was not a philosopher or a priest preaching morality. He was a literary star, an influencer of Roman times. With perfectly coiffed hair, a pristine white toga that was always immaculate, and a confident half-smirk. Living under the reign of Emperor Augustus, Ovid witnessed a Rome in transformation. After years of bloody civil war, Augustus wanted to build an empire that was not only militarily strong, but also morally exemplary. He enacted strict laws on marriage and family, encouraging marriage, childbirth, and promoting fidelity and piety. Augustus wanted Rome to be a symbol of order, a model for the entire empire. But Ovid, he couldn't care less about those lofty ideals. With the arrogance of a genius, he wrote Ars Amatoria, the art of love, sarcastic, pragmatic, and daring manual on how to seduce and conquer in the game of love. This was not a hymn to romantic love. This was a detailed A-to-Z guide on how to hunt, flirt, and win. Moreover, it was a ticking time bomb thrown directly at Augustus's moralizing efforts. Ars Amatoria is divided into 3 parts. The first 2 are for men, instructing them on how to find, approach, and keep a lover. The third part, written after Ovid was complained to by women that he had only armed the men, is a manual specifically for women teaching them how to beautify themselves, seduce, and control their smitten suitors. Let's flip through this notorious book to see what Ovid taught about the game of love in Rome. Ovid doesn't advise you to find love in dark corners or private moments. Go where the prey frequents, he wrote, and in Rome, that meant public places, where crowds gathered and all eyes were watching. The arena and the circus, the Colosseum and the Circus Maximus were perfect stages. In the jostling crowd, a young man could accidentally sit next to a girl, brush dust off her dress as a gallant gesture, or use the chariot race as an excuse to strike up a conversation. The roar of the crowd, the thundering hooves, and the drama of the contests created an exhilarating atmosphere, the perfect catalyst for sparks to fly. Imagine, amidst the scene of a gladiator falling in the sand, a stolen glance could be as significant as a fatal blow. The theater, Ovid advises you to pay attention to the girls in the back rows. Comment on the play, praise the actors, or pretend to be a person of fine taste. That's how you start a conversation.
Ow.
In the darkness of the theater, a smile or a light touch could be the beginning of a love story. Lavish banquets, wine flowing, laughter echoing, and candlelight flickering, this was where social barriers became fragile, Ovid suggests. Arrive early while everyone is still sober. And don't forget to compliment the host's cooking, even if the food is terrible. A well-timed compliment could open the door to someone's heart, courts. Even amidst tense trials, Ovid saw opportunities. A woman worried about her lawsuit. Approach, show sympathy, and promise to help whether you actually can or not. In Rome, love was not a private experience. It was a performance, played out before the eyes of the entire city, much like how you perform on social media today, with carefully edited stories to attract likes. Once the target was chosen, Ovid provided a series of specific tactics, astonishing in their modernity. If you read carefully, you'll see his advice is like a user manual for an ancient version of Tinder. Build the perfect profile, take care of your appearance, but don't be gaudy. Neat hair, clean fingernails, fresh breath, and a pristine white toga were essential. Don't dress like a fop, Ovid warned. Natural elegance was key. Confident opening. Start with charming compliments about her hair, her hands, or the way she walks. Ovid encouraged harmless promises that you might never fulfill. The gods themselves laugh at the oaths of lovers, he wrote mischievously. Seductive language. Be an interesting conversationalist. Know a little about poetry, history, and how to tell a joke. But most importantly, listen. Let her talk about herself at a banquet. Secretly use your finger to write sweet nothings on the table with wine, or give her a smoldering look across the crowded room. Accidental touches. Seize every opportunity to break the physical barrier. When walking, lightly touch her hand. In a crowd, put your arm around her to protect her. These small moments, Ovid said, are how you conquer a heart. Persistence and a little guts. Women like to be pursued, Ovid asserted. Don't give up after the first refusal. Write passionate love letters, show up at the right moments, and even learn to cry artfully to win sympathy. Ars Amatoria does not focus on sexual techniques, but on the preliminaries: flirting, conquering, and maintaining interest. It is a book about psychology, about how to read and manipulate the emotions of your counterpart. Ovid didn't just write for men. In the third part, he devotes an entire section to empowering women, teaching them how to win at this very game. This was not a lesson in submission, but in soft power. Beauty is a weapon. Ovid provided natural beauty recipes from skin masks to how to choose colors that flatter the complexion. He taught about fashionable hairstyles and how to apply makeup subtly to look natural yet captivating. Social skills. A charming woman is not just beautiful. She must know how to dance, play a musical instrument, or participate in intellectual games like chess. Charming conversation, a sense of humor, and maintaining a little mystery. That's how to make men infatuated. The art of playing hard to get? Ovid taught women how to control the game. Don't be too easy, let him wait. Write a reply letter, but sometimes forget to send it. Praise another man to stir up a little jealousy. Refuse skillfully to make his desire burn even hotter. This was a psychological chess match where women were not the prey, but the players. Through this advice, Ovid paints a picture of male-female relationships in Rome. Not a spiritual harmony, but a dramatic battle of wits, where both sides tried to gain the upper hand. But every game has its risks, and Ovid paid a heavy price. Emperor Augustus, the referee of Rome, did not find Ars Amatoria amusing at all. To him, this book was a threat, a toxic work that undermined the moral values he was painstakingly trying to build. In 08 AD, an edict from Augustus struck like a sword. Ovid was exiled to Tomasa Remote, cold land on the shores of the Black Sea, in what is now Romania. He was stripped of everything: his family, his friends, and the glamorous urban life he loved. There was no trial, no chance to defend himself. The official reason, as Ovid wrote, was a poem and a mistake. The poem, almost certainly, was Ars Amatoria, and the mistake? That remains a historical mystery, possibly related to a scandal in the imperial family that Ovid was inadvertently involved in. Ovid's life is proof that, in Rome, the game of love was never separate from the game of power. His verses were not just entertainment, they were a challenge to the social order. Ovid taught an empire how to play, but in the end, he himself lost the biggest game of all. Look at the modern dating world. Apps like Tinder, where people swipe each other based on a few photos, carefully crafted bios to create the perfect profile. Unwritten rules. How long to wait before replying to a message? Posting a sad story at the right time to get attention? Or even leaving someone unread to maintain the upper hand? Ovid taught men to write love letters and cry artfully. Today, we call that a carefully drafted text message or a cryptic Instagram post. The technology changes, but the nature of the game remains the same. So, in this world, who are you? Seasoned player who knows all the tactics? Or just a pawn swept along by the moves of others? Rome turned love into a dramatic game. But after Ovid, the West entered a long period of silence and repression. Sex, once a public performance, was gradually pushed into the shadows, enveloped by new moral rules. What happened? Were the ones who dared to break that silence? And what was the price of the explosion that followed? Let's find out in our next journey, as the wheel of history takes us to the sexual revolutions that shook the world. Do you see yourself playing the modern game of love like Ovid, with tactics on Tinder? Or are you just being swept along? The Great Silence and the Modern Awakening. What happened to the secret manuals? Imagine you are flipping through a colossal ancient book. It's thousands of yellowed pages filled with secrets of pleasure. It's profound treatises on sexuality from Greece, Rome, India, and China. Those pages are vibrant, brilliant, full of laughter and passionate whispers. Then suddenly, the pages go blank. Not a single word. Not a single whisper. More than a millennium passes in a chilling silence, as if someone had erased that entire chapter from human history. Sex, once the center of art, medicine, and philosophy, vanished from public discourse, leaving a vast, cold emptiness. What happened? Why was that brilliant flow of knowledge abruptly cut off? And who were the brave souls who lit the first flame to break the darkness? We have just journeyed together through a vibrant, ancient world, where sex was not taboo, but a part of everyday life, a dance. A medicine, a sophisticated game. Despite different perspectives, that dialogue always existed. Sometimes quietly, like an underground river. Sometimes lively, like a grand feast. But then, everything changed. Not in a sudden storm, but as a slow process, like layers of ice gradually covering a once warm lake. To understand better, let's divide this journey into 3 distinct historical stages. The dark night of Christianity's rise in the Middle Ages, the peak of repression in the Victorian era, and finally the cracks that led to the modern awakening. Let's begin with the first stage, the encroaching darkness. This change did not happen overnight. It began with the fall of the Roman Empire in the 5th century AD. As that mighty empire crumbled under the pressure of barbarian invasions, a new faith emerged as a beacon in the chaotic darkness: Christianity. This was not just a religion, it was an ideological revolution that reshaped the entire Western civilization. The Roman worldview, worshipping earthly life, with its Dionysian feasts and perfect nude statues, gradually gave way to a perspective focused on the afterlife, where the soul was the center. Early Christian theologians viewed the human body not as a work of art by Zeus or Aphrodite, but as a source of sin, a temporary prison for the immortal soul. The doctrine of original sin, the story of Adam and Eve. In the Garden of Eden taught that it was through the act of eating the forbidden fruit that carnal desire crept into the world. Becoming a symbol of the fall from God's grace, desire was no longer a source of joy. It was an enemy to be fought. The ideal life was now one of asceticism, celibacy, and renunciation of worldly desires to achieve eternal salvation. The most revered figures were not talented lovers like those in the Kamasutra or Ars Amatoria, but martyred saints, hermits, living alone in the desert, fasting to subdue the body. Picture this scene like a black and white historical film. St. Augustine, one of the greatest pillars of Western theology, sits in a dark room in Hippo, North Africa, in the 4th century. A single candle flickers on the table, illuminating his austere face. His trembling hands hold a quill, writing his Confessions, a brutally honest autobiography. He writes about his dissolute youth, the long nights spent battling sexual desire like an internal tempest. For Augustine, even sex within marriage, though permitted for procreation, could not escape the shadow of sin. Pleasure for its own sake was a dangerous distraction from the path of serving God. "Give me chastity and continence," he prayed, but not yet. If you lived in the 5th century, would you dare to admit your deepest desires before God? Or would you choose silence, fearing that one word could send you to hell? This ideology spread like a wave across Europe during the Middle Ages, from the 5th to the 15th centuries. The conversation about sex was no longer an exploration of art or philosophy. It was reduced to a strict list of rules and prohibitions from the church. Sex was only acceptable within marriage, for the sole purpose of procreation. All other forms, masturbation, premarital sex, homosexuality, or even using herbal contraceptives, were considered mortal sins, punishable by the Inquisition. Books like Ovid's Ars Amatoria were burned or condemned as works of the devil. The open medical knowledge from the Islamic world, or Greece once, detailed by figures like Galen or Avicenna, was forgotten or hidden away in monastery libraries. Far from public view, silence had officially descended, like a thick blanket of snow covering everything, much like how society today sometimes still avoids talking about sexual health, leaving many to wonder, am I normal? But that silence had not yet reached its peak. Let's step up to the second stage. The peak of repression in the Victorian era, the 19th century in Britain and many Western countries. This was a period of strange contradictions, like a black and white film with two opposing sides. On the surface, Victorian society was a picture of extreme moral propriety. Imagine a noble's drawing room in London. Heavy curtains block every sliver of light. Furniture is covered in pristine white cloth, and even piano legs are draped because their shape was too suggestive, possibly arousing wicked thoughts.
Ow.
People used hundreds of euphemisms: lower limb instead of leg, a sensitive member instead of being directed just to avoid mentioning the body. Sex was swept from polite conversation, pushed into the shadows of shame and denial. This was the public face of the silence, a repression that reached an almost comical level, if it weren't so tragic. However, humans are not stone statues. Repression does not extinguish instinct. It only distorts it and makes it flow underground. Beneath that prim exterior, Victorian society simmered like a cauldron. While respectable gentlemen discussed morality in their drawing rooms, London's red light districts exploded with tens of thousands of prostitutes, serving everyone from workers to aristocrats. Mainstream literature wrote only of pure love, but a massive underground pornography industry operated in secret. Erotic novels and illicit images were printed and distributed through clandestine networks. This very hypocrisy was a symptom of a society that had lost the language to talk about sex. It had no vocabulary, no philosophical framework other than the lens of sin. If you lived in the Victorian era, who do you think you would be? The strict moralist in the drawing room, or the one secretly reading a forbidden novel by dim candlelight, heart pounding with fear of being discovered? This silence persisted, but no darkness lasts forever. Now we step up to the third stage, the cracks and the modern awakening. Beginning in the late 19th century and exploding in the 20th, the people who broke the silence this time were not poets or sages. They were scientists, doctors, the modern-day Vatsyyanas or Ovids, but their weapons were microscopes, questionnaires, and laboratories. They approached sex not with moral judgment, but with scientific curiosity, transforming it from a taboo into an object of study. The first person to throw a large stone into the still pond was Sigmund Freud, the father of psychoanalysis. Imagine a clinic in Vienna in 1890. A long leather sofa, dim light from an oil lamp, a patient lying there, tears streaming down their face as they confessed their deepest secrets. Freud listened, took notes, and came to a shocking conclusion. The root of many psychological disorders was repressed sexual desire. He called the libido, the sexual energy, the fundamental driving force of the mind, operating subconsciously from childhood, much like how we talk about dopamine in the brain today, driving all behavior. Although many of his theories are contested today, Freud did the unthinkable. He pulled sex out of the shadow of sin and placed it in the doctor's office. He forced society to acknowledge that sex exists, and it affects everything from dreams to life choices. If Freud were alive in the age of Tinder today, he would probably call the app a modern expression of repressed libido. Following Freud, Alfred Kinsey opened the dialogue on actual behavior. Kinsey was an American biologist. Initially studying gall wasps in the 1940s, he noticed a humorous paradox. There was more scientific literature on the sexuality of wasps than on that of humans. So, he conducted a massive study, interviewing thousands of Americans from all walks of life, asking them directly about their sex lives, an act as bold as sending out a sensitive Google form in the mid-20th century. The results in the Kinsey reports were seismic. Behaviors considered deviant, such as masturbation, premarital sex, adultery, or homosexual experiences, turned out to be astonishingly common. With cold, hard data, Kinsey normalized diversity, showing millions of people that they were not abnormal. If you've ever asked yourself, am I normal? While reading statistics online, you have Kinsey to thank. He was the pioneer of modern sex data. And the most audacious step was taken by William Masters and Virginia Johnson in the 1960s. If Freud listened and Kinsey asked, they observed directly. Imagine a laboratory in St. Louis. Volunteers engage in sexual activity, connected to machines measuring heart rate, blood pressure, and muscle contractions, turning the bedroom into a scientific lab. They mapped the human sexual response cycle in 4 detailed stages, debunking myths about the female orgasm. By taking a clinical approach, they stripped away the veil of mystery, turning sex into a biological process that could be understood and repaired like an engineer optimizing a machine. And so, after more than 1,000 years, the great silence was broken. From Freud and Kinsey to Masters and Johnson, the sexual revolution of the 20th century took place, leaving us in the 21st century with unprecedented freedom and information. We have charts, statistics, and analyses. But are we any wiser? In our effort to turn sex into a science, into performance and technique, have we lost the poetic, spiritual, and artistic language of the ancients? We have come a long way from antiquity, through darkness, to modernity. In the final part, let's distill humanity's message and ask ourselves, what will your own Kamasutra be about? Have you ever experienced repressed sexual feelings leading to stress, as Freud described? Or are you using data from Kinsey to reassure yourself? Writing your own Kamasutra, the unifying message of humanity. The night is late, and we are standing at the final turn of our journey. From this quiet room, we have traveled through the ancient temples of India, the serene studies of China, the fragrant gardens of the Islamic world, and the bustling streets of Rome. We have witnessed the rise of modern science, analyzing every beat of the heart and body. Each civilization is a musical note, each philosophy a melody, and now they all resonate in your mind. But amidst these myriad sounds, what is the answer? What is the secret to understanding ourselves, to understanding the deepest connection of humanity? Listen, they are not separate melodies, but a grand symphony where 5 parts blend together, each telling a story about humanity and its desire to transcend instinct. The first part, from India, is the deep, resonant sound of the sitar, singing of balance. Sex is not just pleasure, but a sacred dance where the 4 aims of life, dharma, artha, kama, and moksha, meet. It is the bridge connecting humanity to the cosmos, a philosophy of living. The second part, from China, is the quiet, serene sound of the bamboo flute, whispering of the universe within the body. Sex is not depletion, but an art of nurturing life, where qi and yin-yang harmonize to foster health and longevity. It is a technology for living. The third part, from the Arab world, is the solemn sound of the oud, praising love as a gift from God. Pleasure is sacred, but only within the bond of marriage, guided by respect and responsibility. It is a morality for living. The fourth part, from Rome, is the vibrant rhythm of drums, telling of love as a dramatic social game. No philosophy, no medicine, only tactics, seduction, and the art of conquest. It is a performance. The fifth part, from the modern world, is the sharp rhythm of science, with its numbers, charts, and analysis. We dissect the body, measure emotions, and seek truth through the lens of reason. It is a quest for truth. 5 parts, 5 ways of looking at the same thing, the connection between human beings. But if you listen very closely, you will hear a common chord, a message that transcends all eras. It is humanity's aspiration to rise above instinct, to turn the act of mating into a meaningful story. No animal writes books about sex. Tigers hunt, birds perform courtship dances, all according to nature's programming. Only humans, with our consciousness of existence and death, seek to clothe that instinct in the garments of culture, morality, medicine, and art. From Vatsyayana to Ovid, from the plain woman to Sheikh al-Nafsawa, they were all answering the same question. How do we turn a moment of flesh into an eternal connection? Can you hear it, those melodies? They are fading. All that's left is the sound of your own heart, your own pulse. And in this moment, the question is no longer what did they say, but rather, what will you write? We live in a special era where the entire library of humanity is at our fingertips. You can read the Kamasutra, study Taoism, explore Ovid, or look up the latest scientific papers. But this very abundance is also a burden. We are torn between having to be a sage, a Taoist master, a believer, a player, and a scientist all at once. It is a burden no one can bear. Perhaps the final lesson from this journey is not to choose an ancient book as your guide, but to realize that it is time for you to write your own. What will your Kamasutra begin with? Chapter on responsibility, where you ask yourself, what makes a connection genuine? A chapter on joy, where you listen to your body to find out what fills you with energy? Or a chapter on the secret garden, where only you and your loved one know how to enter? You don't need to write it on paper. A book might exist only in quiet moments, in the look you give someone, in the breath you share in the night, and that is enough. Tonight, we have stayed awake together to listen to the symphony of humanity. Now, as dawn breaks, the pen is in your hand. Perhaps the answer lies not in pleasure, nor in love, but in the very journey you chart for yourself, a journey that belongs only to you. Thank you for staying up with me tonight. I wish you an inspiring journey of writing and a peaceful dream.
You've crossed the story. You felt every pulse in the dark, and I was there with you, quietly, always. That's why I left behind one last thing. Not to explain, not to impress, just to stay with you a little longer. A song I chose with care, as if tucking you in from across time and space. So go on, lay back, the music knows where to take you. you're still here, then you're something rare. Not many stay this long. So, thank you for choosing to stay. I'm here too, still awake, surrounded by the quiet glow of my editing screen, shaping the next stories just for you. If there's anything you want to leave behind, a whisper, a suggestion, even just a symbol, drop it in the comments. Because maybe, tomorrow night, you'll hear yourself echoed in a story that's never been told before. still here, even now? I have a feeling part of you is still wandering somewhere between wakefulness and dreaming. I know that feeling well because I'm still awake with you. In a quiet room, I'm gently laying out layers of sound, each breath, each beat, preparing the next journey we'll take together. If you're still listening, leave me a sign. Let me know how you're feeling or just where you are in this vast world. Because right now, in this stillness, you are not alone. You're still there, aren't you? I can't see you, but I can feel you. Like a soft signal pulsing across the silence. Over here, I'm still working, refining layers of sound, rewriting fragments of voice, building the landscape for our next adventure. One that you might inspire. If an idea comes to you, share it with me. Comment below. A theme, a memory, a strange dream. I read every word because I never tell these stories alone. I tell them with you.